Media superstar Megyn Kelly and Boris Johnson has been forced into another U-turn on a mooted US-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement today after it was ridiculed as a desperate bid to distract from being snubbed by Joe Biden. Now, when asked about a possible post-Brexit trade deal with the US at a meeting yesterday, Biden, you've got to admit, he sounded rather cool.
We talked about trade a little bit today, and we're going to have to work that through.
Let me just say on that, Harry. I mean, don't forget, folks. So we've settled the Boeing Airbus thing, which was a massive problem between us. So we're making a lot of progress. To say nothing of the beef and the whiskey.
Not getting this trade deal, are we?
No. Here's the deal, Dan. We here in the United States are already in what is called a throuple. And you guys want to make it a quad, and we're just not going to do it. We're not ready for that. That's a bridge too far. We're happy in our throuple, and sorry, but no.
What fascinated me most, Megyn, about this interaction between Biden and Boris Johnson in the Oval Office last night, which we actually carried live on the show, was Biden's shocking attitude, though, to the American media, which is obviously something we've spoken about quite a lot over the past few weeks. So have a look at this, and I'll get you to react off the back.
Mm-hmm. Would it be okay if we just have a couple of questions, just a couple of questions and I think we're going to be ruthless. I'm going to go to Harry Cole from The Sun.
Mr. President, he asked him the question.
So, Megyn, first, he didn't actually want to take the questions from the British media. He ended up doing just two questions. Then the furious American media tried to get in on the act, and they were actually forcibly removed from the room and screamed at by Biden aides. So what does he have to hide?
We're not allowed to ask questions of our our president. We're not allowed. He's made that perfectly clear. And he's also made clear that he's not even the one making that decision. I mean, that's why. So Boris Johnson looks at Joe Biden and says, can I take some questions from the media? Like, can I? And of course, Joe Biden's like, good luck, because he understands that his handlers don't allow that. It's like we're training my dog right now on the invisible fence. It looks at me to see where the danger is. That's what was happening. They're like, Joe Biden looking at his handlers like, he wants to take questions. I know that's not allowed. And sure enough, Prime Minister Johnson took two. And then when the American media was like, sure, I want in on this, Biden understood he couldn't. And his handlers were like, no, absolutely not. Get out. They didn't get a single question of our president, which is totally consistent with tradition. When you have a foreign leader come to the White House, usually they'll take two from their press corps, and we'll take two from our press corps. And sometimes we flip-flop, we give a couple, opposite ways. And this time we didn't get any because Joe Biden won't take any. And it got to the point where the White House press corps actually went in and lodged a formal complaint this time with the White House about this president's unwillingness, inability, refusal to, pursuant to orders, take any questions from the American media.
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. But Megyn, I have to ask, did Boris make much of an impact over there? Was anyone really talking about his visit? Be honest.
Well, the lamb thing was really, no. It was, I think
it went by unnoticed.
Defense, yeah, people weren't all that excited about it. I mean, I think the thing with the vaccinations, that's nice that the Brits can come over to America now if they prove they're vaccinated. That's good.
Yes, we need
But I think this could have been a nice moment, right? It's like they're sitting there together in the White House, and if Biden had taken some questions, it was sort of a chance for a victory lap. This is my friend. He came over. We've loosened some of the restrictions. Bojo can go home and tell everybody he got that done. He got the lamb thing done. The thing on trade was a bit of an embarrassment, but, frankly, I'm not sure how the confusion there arose because it doesn't seem like he ever really had any chance of getting in on that deal. And instead, the headlines over here have all been about Biden rushing the media out. And the White House is ticked. The headlines here today were about how the White House is irritated with Johnson because he didn't ask. He didn't ask if it would be okay to take the questions. That wasn't pre-cleared with the Biden minders. Apparently, your leader does what he wants, unlike ours, we have no idea who's telling him what to do.
No, indeed. It was, look, I've actually written my column for Mail Online about this today. I felt the entire meeting was a missed opportunity. It was all about COVID theatre. They're sitting there, both double vaccinated, wearing masks, which is just completely ridiculous and unnecessary. They should have been saying, look, we're here to declare that our vaccine rollout has been a success and we're about to reopen the world. Instead, it just looked like they were pathetically cowering from COVID. I just hated the optics of the whole thing.
I don't disagree with that at all. Like these huge muzzles on their faces, leaders of the free world. It's like, please, Trump was onto something, at least in those circumstances, when he was like, people want to see the president. You know, it projects a sense of fear culture.
Totally.
And those two guys sitting as far away as they were would have been fine without their masks. They're double vaccinated. We all know that. So you have to find the line, right? Because the reason they have to do it is because they're still restricting all of us. And they don't want a situation
But Boris
like
last week did his cabinet meeting. Yeah, well, exactly. And Boris did his cabinet meeting over here last week with 27 ministers in a relatively small room, no masks in sight. So it was mad. It was completely mad. But look, Megyn, I've got to ask you what's going on the streets of New York. Are we finally getting a little bit of resistance to vaccine passports with these protests? Because, of course, America, or much of America, seems to have been pretty compliant in democratic states.
I do think New Yorkers have had it. I love this protest. They had a pole dancer there. It's like, I don't think she's afraid of viruses. I don't know. I'm not sure. She has a universal policy. She's not afraid of germs. But I think New Yorkers have started to have it. I think we're seeing that more and more here in the United States. And I do think some of the events I just mentioned help fuel some of the disgust. First of all last year, the New York City public schools were closed because most of these teachers unions said it was unsafe. Then when given the chance to get the vaccine, 40% of them declined to get it and wanted to stay at home, which really infuriated parents who went to rallies and were called white supremacists just because they wanted schools open. So they're already on the knife's edge. You know, they've sort of had it, and childhood obesity is rising, childhood anxiety and depression is rising, childhood suicide rates are rising, and I do think parents, New York and elsewhere, are ready to fight. They're ready to fight finally on this. But then we've had all these PR debacles here, where you had the Met Gala, this hoity-toity event, which is absurd, with all these celebrities without the masks on, and their serfs down below on their hands and knees, taking their pictures or putting their shoes on for them, all masked up, because as the journalist Glenn Greenwald, sarcastically said, their faces don't matter. And that really was sort of the message. Then we saw the same thing with the Hollywood Emmys. All these celebrities out there within 2 inches of one another, not wearing masks, even though there is an indoor mask mandate in Los Angeles, while all of their, photographers and so on and the people interviewing them had to wear the masks. Why? Because they got an exception. Why'd they get an exception? Because they're famous. They're beautiful. They're rich. There's no other good reason. Then in San Francisco, you see the mayor, London Breed, who was in favor of and helped impose the indoor mask mandate for her city, which is all over California, taking her mask off, dancing inside of a nightclub called the Black Cat. Free for all. She was supposedly near her drink. You're supposed to have your mask up in between sips. If you're just within 50 feet of your drink, I guess it's okay now. And when caught red-handed on camera, she said, I was feeling the spirit. I'm not answering to the fun police. You mean yourself? You're the fun police. None of us want to answer to the fun police, but it's truly one after the other, a rules for thee and not for me situation. And I think even diehard liberals in New York, some of them at least, or maybe more the more moderate liberals in New York, have had it, Dan. I certainly know.
Yeah, good.
I've had it.
Good. I've had it too over here, believe me, Megyn. But look, stand by, because I want to get the latest from you on this Texas abortion law situation straight after the break. And is Trump heading back to the White House? As former press secretary Sean Spicer gives the inside track on the big question. But you can also ask Sean Spicer whatever you want. Dan at gbnews.uk, or tweet us at gbnews. Back in 2. Sean Spicer coming shortly. Megyn Kelly back with me now, though. And Megyn, a Texas doctor who admitted to breaking the state's abortion legislation has been sued in what's been seen as a potential test of the new law. So Alan Braid wrote that he had carried out a termination on a woman who was in the early stages of her pregnancy, but beyond the state's new limit. Former lawyers in Arkansas and Illinois filed lawsuits against him on Monday. And the law, which came into effect on the 1st of September, gives any individual from Texas or elsewhere the right to sue doctors who perform an abortion past the 6-week point. So obviously, as well as everything else, Megyn, you are one of America's top legal analysts. What do you think will happen in this case?
Well, first of all, it bears noting that the two lawyers who filed the lawsuit are pro-choice, and they're not doing this to support the law, right? They're not actually mad about what the doctor did. And the one guy is kind of interesting. He's the guy from Arkansas, is a former tax attorney in Arkansas. Why is he former? Because he's currently serving home confinement for conviction on federal tax crimes.
Oh, that's not great.
Who has brought the lawsuit. But look, this doctor who has a sincerely held belief that women have this right before the point of viability, 22 weeks in Texas, to have an abortion, he's a true believer. And so he performed this abortion on a woman where it would violate the law, but he doesn't believe the Constitution. He thinks the law is unconstitutional. Basically, because one of the reasons this case hasn't been heard yet is because there was no one who had performed an abortion and there was no one to sue. That's the way the law works. It gives a civil right of filing a lawsuit against two people, like even, I don't know, you or me, you or I could do it. We could sue the Lyft driver who brought a woman who was at the wrong point in her pregnancy from going to the abortion clinic. We could sue the doctor who performed it and so on. And you can't sue the woman herself. But anyway, so he decided to test the law. And now these two lawyers with questionable histories are going to test the law, but they won't be arguing so forcefully behind the law because they happen to disagree with the law. But none of that will wind up mattering because you'll get friend of the court briefs from people who really do like the law, in support of the law, all of which brings us to where? When it finally gets heard by a court of law, I predict it will be struck down. I don't think that this is going to be the way to get rid of Roe. I think there's a case going up December 1st before the Supreme Court that will take a hard look at Roe. The justices always try to decide it as narrowly as possible. They don't want to reverse a 40-plus-year-old precedent, almost 50-year-old precedent without really good reason to do so, even though Roe is very, very unsteady as a legal doctrine. But it's been around for so long. So my point is, I think the Texas law will fall. I think there will be an abortion case heard by the Supreme Court. I think they'll decide it as narrowly as possible, but I think we are going to see further erosion of this alleged sort of right recognized by Roe because we have a conservative court, even without John Roberts, who's been the most. So far, there hasn't been a rush to do that. I think everybody's waiting for the test case to go forward.
Yeah,
and now it's started, so we'll see. I mean, this doctor who performed the procedure was saying he's had patients come in there. Most of them don't have a lot of money. Most of them are mothers already. Most of them are between the ages of 22 and 30. And he said to a mother of 4 who was expecting another child, you have to drive 9 hours to Oklahoma to get an abortion. And she said, how can I do that? I've got 4 kids at home. It's not a matter of you getting me a driver or you paying for it. I don't have time to do that kind of thing. This is such a divisive issue, Dan. It's like, we've got millions and millions of people here in America who genuinely believe that it's murder to take the life of an unborn baby, even at the 6-week mark. There's no question in my mind, as somebody who really does follow the science, whether it's COVID or abortion, that life does begin at conception. But that doesn't mean that there's not room for a debate about relative interests between the mother and the fetus. And to say that the interests are completely equal from day one versus on, the last day of the pregnancy seems to be anti-science as well, right? It's like, I understand the sliding scale that the Supreme Court handed down in Roe, but I also understand as a matter of jurisprudence, that decision's a hot mess. The right to privacy is a hot mess. It's not in the Constitution. And as Justice Scalia was saying all along before he died, but he was a wonderful, wonderful jurist on the Supreme Court. If you want this right, if you want a right like abortion, if you want to see that as doctrine in the United States, don't try to get 9 judges in robes to write it into the Constitution when it's not there. Go to the people and convince them to pass a constitutional amendment so that it's clear. And so far, the pro-choice lobby hasn't done that because there aren't the votes. Even though the country overwhelmingly favors abortion, 2/3 want to see it remain legal, but there's not the votes to make it a right so that every state has to allow it the way we have right now.
Fascinating stuff. This is not an issue going away. Megyn Kelly, pleasure to have you again. And of course, the Megyn Kelly Show podcast, you've got to download it. It's so brilliant. And you get more episodes now, so it's even better. Megyn Kelly, we'll speak again next week. Thank you so much.